Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would be operating in an assisting capacity, for it is so that through the way I have developed my consciousness, so its construct is as a valuable resource of ideas, concepts, and capability, cultivated over many lifetimes, that although in my current human life, much of it I haven't access to, as we always have a new body vehicle and mind each lifetime around, all previous experience, reference, and developed skills from prior lifetimes unavailable and resigned to the subconscious area. On the real side, I can draw upon a vaster array of skills and apply them than I can in my more limited physical level human position. Although that which we have cultivated, certain of the ideas we have created and built upon, are effects following us lifetime to lifetime, manifesting their expression in some shape or form, even on the physical. Children that are curiously expert where musical instruments are concerned, for example, a skill that they couldn't have learned in the short durations of their lives to that point, from the perspective of those unaccepting of the possibility of continuous reincarnational cycles, a musical prowess in actuality established lifetimes past. Through the real awareness, which is part of the isness everything, a true reality that permeates through all consciousness, so the real awareness we each are has access to everything, every idea, concept. Nothing is beyond its grasp. That as we allow the real awareness to take the reins of our real side experiences, animating our forms directly without personal self-interference, we can operate in any environment multi-dimensionally and have the tools to handle and cope with whatever may be required, the flying of alien craft, the utilizing of any technology regardless of its level of sophistication, etc. As the real awareness is the everything reality, there is nothing that it is not. It is without limit, and we are also where our experiences are orchestrated by our real awareness true being selves. Given all that I have said thus far, as we operate on the real side in ways that seem supernatural from the perspective of those witnessing our feats, so oftentimes I am approached by various body types that they desire to secure my services, assisting them with that which they are unable to do themselves, generally due to they operating as the immersed personal self, and where they only then have access to how they have developed their creation and consciousness, the skills and abilities personally available to them, but absent of the limitlessness that the real awareness can afford, but a real awareness that could be embraced if the intent is established to do so. This would be one such real side experience, as I mentioned in the beginning, for I had agreed to assist an individual that appearance-wise presented as a male human, though one whose chosen creational preoccupation was the pursuit of magical ability in all its forms. Something I can relate to, as most of my lifetimes involved the utilizing of some form of creational manipulation, accessing the psychic science aspect of the created selves, the ethereal. Simply just another creational distraction and idea to relentlessly chase through the lifetimes, maintaining ourselves to the effects, until we eventually do come to the realization of the importance to stand indifferent to all ideas of creation, the releasing of attachment that renders our need to be retained in the simulators unnecessary. This individual, as magically adept as he was, desired to accomplish a task beyond his capability, and evidently had been made aware of my real side activities, where seemingly I was able to operate without a boundary or limitation, and I had indeed rendered my services. Impressions revealed that although he wasn't a Dark Force-affiliated character, he had a somewhat dubious consciousness, completely self-serving in his passion for magical advancement, that up until this moment he hadn't operated destructively in regards to others, but there was the potentiality for it. For he had the mentality, that of nothing standing in his way, regardless of the cost, where his magical ambitions were concerned. As such, I was on my guard, so to speak, that he had witnessed or been made aware of my real side multi-dimensional capabilities, but unrevealed to him was that I maintained a physical level existence as a human, and my other dimensional activities were made apparent to my personal self only during the period where my awareness would be liberated from the physical level affording physical body form apparatus, when I sleep. For I had the impression that it was unwise that he be privy to this fact, for as unlimited as we may be on the real side, our little physical level body types can be relatively vulnerable, and uncertain was it as to how extensive the reach of this individual was. Therefore, I would be operating in an alternative form than my Kevin physical body type. I would, in fact, be in the outer guise of a human female, a case of presenting a false identity as an obfuscation method. That although I go about certain of my real side assignments in my Kevin form, impressions revealed the magician wasn't aware of this. The individual desired to open a gate or portal of some kind. This conduit was very ancient, and the consciousness-decided mechanism of its yielding was very complex, the knowledge regarding it lost in the mists of time, so to speak. The magician had been painstakingly piecing together and researching the means of the portal's activation, scouring multi-dimensional creation for clues and written records, etc., and in the end he only had but fragments of the procedure. This is where I came in, leaning to the real awareness and its all-everything capability, accessing everything installed in the overall consciousness, that the techniques to be applied for the portal's opening could be gleaned. Apparently, this portal connected to an area of creation where a god resided, as according to the magician. A god that had been resigned to a certain region of creation, for whatever reason that had been. The magician would inform me that should the god be unleashed, his incredible powers would be utilized for the benefit of all those he now could enter the midst of, as he would be afforded effectively full multi-dimensional simulator access. In reality, we all have access to all the dimensions of the simulators anyway, for the consciousness which we each animate through contains its complete construct. We have downloaded the entirety of a computer game's layout to our computers as an analogy. What limits complete accessibility, then, is based on what we have decided, the idea agreements and attachments that present as restrictions to our access, ideas we have created or agreed to as created by others. Impressions revealed that this self-proclaimed God, whoever he was, had developed himself, that he was indeed very powerful, and he had secured extensive agreement by whatever means this had been accomplished, that ensured he was able to bestow his power upon vast numbers, to impact the experience and body forms of the simulator multitudes as he saw fit. There was as though one fine detail in the contract, so to speak, between the god and the one liberating him from his contained position, an agreement established whereby the magician, or whoever opened the portal, would have control of the god, able to direct and channel the powers the god could muster, and the magician intended the god would serve and operate honourably and beneficially, as I mentioned. A curious situation, but every creational circumstance and relationship between body types is simply according to the idea agreements consciously installed that define them, and regardless of the nature of such happenstances, they are so through choice and decision, which becomes as effected a simulation. As I mentioned, the magician had been conducting himself, up until this moment, in ways that were not abrasive in regards to others, and we had established ourselves in the area of creation where the portal resided, though which currently wasn't visible until activation. Our location was a dusty, long-forgotten planetoid within a partially intact structure on its surface, and it was here that I would be proceeding with the mechanism of a portal opening. The magician had secured quite the flock of followers, and it was as though he were becoming rather self-absorbed with the idea of being the great and renowned magician. This mentality seemed to distort further in a very short period of time, short for the experience rollout, but in this other dimensional reality I was undertaking the very long and arduous drawn-out process of a portal activation, which spanned for, I would say, many months, were I to apply estimated time duration to it. The actual process of opening the portal was rather unfathomable for my personal self to grasp or understand, beyond the scope of human consciousness reference, and so unrelatable. The magician becoming progressively more twisted as I proceeded, as though drunk on the power that would be at his fingertips, the soon-to-be-released god, bound in adherence to his bidding, etc. Impressions revealed that the magician would undoubtedly abuse his new-found source of power, as was always a potentiality, and I would refuse to complete the portal-opening sequence consequently. The magician flew into unbridled rage, and so I vacated immediately the planet, leaving him and his sealed portal far behind. I would relocate to a chamber of a kind, sat at a banquet table with a group of very aware beings, where one of them speaking to me directly would be a guide, as impressions revealed. He would assure me that my choice to cease the portal activation was prudent, given the circumstances, the magician's deterioration into ill-intended inclination, but advised me to exercise caution, as the magician himself was very powerful, and intended my destruction, due to my denying him his prize. This would indeed prove to be the case, as I spent the next portion of the experience being relentlessly hunted across multi-dimensional creation by the magician. Wherever I fled to, so he would follow, though only creationally speaking. My real awareness, actual beingness, would be beyond his ability to locate and impact, as he was a personal self-immersed character, and self-resigned to only the creational side, his own real awareness, true self, rather disconnected from, in a sense. The ideas of others can only have a bearing where ideas can operate in the simulators, where pieces and parts of the whole isness everything can be experienced in isolation. Our real awareness, a reality beyond where ideas and their impact can be so. This was becoming rather monotonous, his persistent pursuit of myself, to the extent that I was actually in the process of undertaking an assignment with a group of other individuals, and the magician would burst onto the scene. That our forms oftentimes present themselves appearance-wise as reflected expressions of our consciousness and intent on the real side, so this now ill-inclined magician would no longer be human, but a kind of twisted, deformed, multi-limbed lizard creature. He would advance upon the group and myself, but I would erect a kind of a barrier or force field, which prevented him from laying his claws upon us, and affording the group and myself a viable time window to extract ourselves from the scene. This was in reality effects of my choosing, my deciding to assist the magician, and now having to deal with the karmic fallout, if you will. But as the magician had no intention of relenting in his pursuit of me, I elected to confront him directly. I would find him back on the planet where the portal resided, entering the broken structure where he and his now far larger group of followers were present. It seems the magician had determined that I currently was operating other-dimensionally, though maintaining a sleeping, physical human body also, and even though I had entered his midst as the same female human form from before, it was no longer necessary therefore to remain as such, and so I adopted my human Kevin body type. The magician now back as human, though the sense of him presenting this way only for his followers. He would then proceed to raise his hands, and his flock of devotees surged towards me aggressively with murderous intentions. I would elevate them all from the ground, and as they thrashed and struggled, I would float them from the building and deposit them far from its location, that they would no longer present as a nuisance. The magician would attempt to assail me with his magic. He would also manifest a glowing axe and embed it in my face. though despite his best and very creative methods, all would prove ineffective, his magical blasts and various weaponry bouncing off me and having no bearing. That regardless of his developed capability, for him to impact my experience and body type, I must agree with the idea that he can successfully do so. Absent of agreement, and the simulation effect can't follow, hence his inability where my destruction was concerned. Although I had abandoned my activation of the portal procedure, it seems he either had completed the process himself or had acquired further assistance, as while he was assailing me with his futile attacking efforts, the portal had been rumbling into life and now was fully activated. It occupied a certain area of the dilapidated building, which became excessively dark, almost like a void, and through the darkness could be discerned a pair of red fiery eyes. The god was emerging from wherever area of creation he had been restricted to. The magician cackled in triumph and faded from the scene. He intended to harness the god to first ensure my elimination, then very likely to assume a greater power position in creation through the threat that the god bound to his bidding presented as. The god would now fully emerge from the darkness, and revealed would be a large, 30 feet or so in height, bipedal, two-legged, reptilian body type, though sporting a pair of wings and a facial structure that reminded me more of a dragon. His exact identity wasn't revealed, but then there are many self-proclaimed gods. The extent of their power over others directly proportional to the agreements they have trawled, allowing potentially the exacting of the power they have developed over those that have extended such agreement. I have encountered many powerful body forms who may be referenced as the Ancient Ones, the gods that lorded over the simulator prior to those currently established as overlords of the life levels. These Ancient Ones generally are forgotten, they tend not to bother anyone, they simply lurk in the dark recesses of creation, though still have the agreement they once trawled long ago, that potentially, if they so chose, they could make use of this agreement and administer destruction. A number of these ancient gods seem to be contained or imprisoned, limited to certain regions of the simulator, by whose hand, who can say, possibly by the very reptilian life-level gods currently in overall control. The process of awareness does entail a releasing of agreement, including that which is extended to all other body types, that as we proceed, we progressively stand less as the effects of anything, including then the ability of others to impact us adversely. The life-level gods have extreme agreement that allows them their positions, and to bestow harm or destruction upon any simulator dweller they desire. Such ultimate power is dependent on equally as extensive agreement interwoven throughout the entirety of the overall consciousness construct. As such, we will not be liberated from the ability of such beings to harm us until we have released practically everything of the consciousness, as literally every idea that consciousness comprises of will be fused with agreement extended to these life-level gods. The Ancient Ones and other similarly powerful beings would present the same situation, that until completion of consciousness facing and releasing, these body forms will always be a threat, and this would include this particular dragon god now in my midst, that the magician controlling it had tasked with my destruction. Curiously, the dragon would give me an option, that although he could have destroyed me on the spot, instead he decided to challenge me to a contest. If I lost, so he would slay me, but were I to win, the dragon would return through the portal, it would seal behind him, and he would be trapped within his dimensional containment once more. Perhaps he was rather arrogant and self-assured that he would be victorious and eradicate me, for he needn't have extended this option, and so maybe this was just an added amusement for him. Interestingly, we contested over a game of pool, a table manifesting with the requisite red and yellow balls. We each had our pool cues, and the game would commence. At this point, I was beginning to wake on the physical, and although the experience, and indeed all our other dimensional activities, are in a process, regardless of our witnessing them or not, I rather wanted to see the outcome, as after all, should I lose, I would in theory be destroyed. The dragon was rather a skilled pool player, but then I could lean to my real awareness, where my victory ought be assured, assuming there was not greater prudence, awareness speaking, for my failure. As we played, as I struggled to retain my view of the experience, and not have it resigned to the physical level as I awoke, I would take the opportunity to enlighten the dragon as to the awareness process, the real universes, the new you song, etc., and he indeed seemed fascinated by what I was divulging. There the experience would conclude, waking on the physical as I would, and what transpires in regards to the ill-intended magician and the dragon god remains to be determined. In theory, the god is still technically under the magician's control, but as it is a situation dependent on agreement, it's a case of this agreement then being removed. And perhaps this is the direction that the discussion between myself and the dragon took, the opportunity of an awareness process that may liberate the god from his agreement contracts, and perchance a new and very powerful ally could be attained.